What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the JETS Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today we look at what is a true priority position in the NFL, the offensive line, okay? I mean, look no further than the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. They have a top offensive line, so good, in fact, that the tush push, the brotherly shove, is a play so effective that the NFL is looking to ban it, for goodness sakes, right? The offensive line reigns supreme. Think about it. In Aaron Rodgers' first year with the Jets, they didn't have an offensive line. He tore his Achilles and was out for the rest of the year. An offensive line and building from the inside out is a true priority for all of the teams in the NFL. And quite frankly, I think new head coach Aaron Glenn knows this, because if you think about it, if there was any team that had a better offensive line than the Philadelphia Eagles, it was where Glenn came from in Detroit. The Detroit Lions were a top level offensive line. So I think he will understand and try to make sure it is a priority for them to be a strong offensive line and continue to develop, whether that's developing their own players, whether that's in free agency, or whether that is in the draft. So let's look at what they have right now. Last year, under Joe Douglas, they decided to upgrade the offensive line, but they did that largely in free agency, and they did that largely with veterans. They took on Tyron Smith, who's a great tackle in his prime with the Dallas Cowboys. They took on Morgan Moses, who is also a solid offensive lineman. But here's the deal. Both of them are now free agents, and both of them were in their mid-30s. So when you have tackles in your mid-30s, there is always a risk of injury, which did happen for a little bit throughout the season, and they command more dollars than most, okay, because of their reputation, because of their resume, because of their experience. I believe the Jets are actually going to move on from both Smith and Moses and look to build and develop the offensive line in other ways. So who does that have left? Well, we got a center in Tippmann, who is a guy, Joe Tippmann, who is a guy that we drafted a couple of years ago and has started to come on, has really started to develop into a quality center. We've got two guards, okay? John Simpson, who was a signing from last year and should remain with the team and is solid. And then AVT, Elijah Vera Tucker, who was a draft pick of the Jets' previous regime and has really developed as, when healthy, one of the better guards in the NFL. Then there is the tackle position, right? Where I said we had Smith and Moses last year. They, I believe, will be moving on. But remember, the Jets drafted Olu Fashanu last year with their first round pick out of Penn State. He was starting to come on and then got injured, but I believe he will be able to step in to one of the positions on the offensive line. So that means we have 4 starting offensive linemen. But here's the deal. I believe that it's just kind of like a starting rotation in Major League Baseball, where you technically have 5 guys in a starting rotation, but you always need more. In the NFL, the term is called the swing tackle or the swing lineman, to not have only 5 offensive linemen, but even more, so that when inevitably one gets hurt, you don't really dip in quality or production as much. So I believe the Jets have 4 starters, and I think they are going to add to this both in the draft and in free agency. As I have said in other episodes here of Jets Latest, I think the Jets at number 7 overall may be targeting offensive lineman out of LSU, Will Campbell. It's an interesting draft because you have the quarterbacks up top. You have other players like edge rushers like Abdul Carter. You have the two-way stud Travis Hunter. And it could be a luxury that if the Jets don't make a move at all and stay at number 7, that they may be able to draft the best offensive lineman on the board in Will Campbell. He is rated as the number 1 tackle in this draft class, and forget about moving up for Cam Ward, forget about all these other kind of moves they may make. They could have at number 7 the best offensive lineman in the draft literally fall into their lap. I know I have said in other places that the Jets may also trade down because positions like safety or tight end could be appealing to the Jets. But if they stay at number 7, and the odds are that they don't actually make a move, there is a chance that the number 1 tackle could in fact fall in their lap. So I believe Aaron Glenn, Darren Mogi, if that happens, they will go ahead and take Will Campbell as a real option at number 7. That helps them get younger. That helps them stay quality. And when you have a young draft pick as a rookie, you are able to kind of slot them in financially and not spend a ton of money elsewhere. So that could be a move. Now remember, they have AVT, Simpson, Tipman, and Fashanu. Will Campbell at the tackle position would give them another starter, and that would be five. But I believe they are going to do more than just that. Another way to address this in the offseason is through free agency, and I believe the Jets could be active in free agency on the offensive line as well. First, let's take a look at their cap space. I've said this to you in previous episodes of Jets Latest. The Jets have about $24 million in cap space, okay? But if they're not spending free agent money on guys like Smith, on guys like Moses, they may be able to have some money to allocate to this position elsewhere. Now, the 24 million roughly that they have is 20th in the NFL, so it's not like they have a boatload of cash to work with. That goes with like the New England Patriots at 128 million. The Vegas Raiders have almost 100 million. Washington, Chicago, Arizona, they all have 70, 80 million dollars of cap space. But here's something that's important to note, especially when we are targeting the offensive line position. There are teams that are already over the cap. The Atlanta Falcons, Seattle Seahawks, Buffalo Bills, New Orleans Saints, and the Cleveland Browns. And I think the Cleveland Browns are very interesting being over the cap. Here are some of the potential targets. Here are some of the potential free agents at offensive line. One, two would be Cam Robinson and Ronnie Stanley. These are kind of Pro Bowl level tackles. The only problem is they are going to command a lot of money in a new free agency deal. There will be a lot of competition for them. I'm talking more than $10 million a year. So I don't think that's the level they are going to go at, especially when they do technically, if they draft Will Campbell, have five starters on the offensive line. Another guy that could be interesting is Joseph Noteboom. He is coming out of the Los Angeles Rams. He's 30 years old. He's a solid tackle, but he only played 20% of the snaps last year for the Rams. Had some injury concerns, so I don't know if he necessarily is their target. Another target could be Andres Pete. He's 32 years old. He was with the Raiders, but remember I said the Raiders are one of these teams that have a lot of cap space. I also think they're going to make a move at the quarterback position, so I think protecting that quarterback is going to be key. There is a very interesting target, however, of note that I think the Jets could go after and could land in free agency. Remember I told you that the Cleveland Browns are one of the teams that are currently over the cap going into free agency. Well, Jedrick Wills is an offensive lineman on the Cleveland Browns. He is only 26 years old. He is a former first-round draft pick out of Alabama, and he had a knee injury that he was dealing with last year with the Browns, and he got benched in the middle of the season. And there was a little bit of weirdness around that. He thought he could play through it, but he was ultimately benched. There was a little bit of a rift between him and the organization. There are quotes out there where he's saying he wants to go, quote unquote, where I am wanted. So I think he may go elsewhere in free agency. And the fact that the Cleveland Browns are over the cap right now means to me that they're not going to invest any money. They're looking to spend less money to get under the cap. So I think Wills is a very interesting target. He is only 26 years old, would be young, like Vera Tucker, like Tipton, like Fashanu, like if they bring in Campbell out of LSU in the first round. So I think that could be a very intriguing option at the offensive line position here. Bottom line, when it looks to the offensive line here for the Jets, is that I think they are going to let Moses go, let Smith go, hope that Fashanu is healthy and can develop the same way as Tipton can and has, the same way as AVT has. They're going to let Simpson be the kind of veteran anchor on that offensive line, and I think what they ultimately do is stay at number 7, draft Will Campbell in the first round, unless, of course, they make a trade. I don't think they're trading up. If anything, they may trade down for a safety like Starks, a tight end like Warren, but I think they stay, they draft Campbell, and in free agency, they get a guy like Jedrick Wills. Remember that name of Wills out of Cleveland? I think he can be a target in free agency on the offensive line. And this is really important, I think, for new head coach Aaron Glenn. He saw the value. He saw the importance of the offensive line when he was in Detroit. We've all seen the value and importance. If you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, I think the Jets in green and white will focus on the offensive line and have a real path to being able to get younger and maintain quality for years to come in the Glenn and Mogi tenure here with the Jets. That's what I think we could, should, and will do at the offensive line. Make sure you go ahead, watch this video, like this video, subscribe to Jets Latest. This way you get a notification every time we go live and you get all the insights on the Jets, Jets, and tell your Jet fan friends, because I am getting you ready for the offseason, free agency, the draft, as we build a new Jets era in 2025 and beyond. That'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. We'll see you next time as we talk more Jets, Jets.